Love Under Fire. With increasing boldness, Huss thundered against the terrible abuses that were tolerated in the name of religion. The people openly accused Rome as the cause of the miseries that overwhelmed the Christian world. Again, Prague seemed on the edge of a bloody war. As in past ages, God's servant was accused of being the troubler of Israel. Rome again placed the city under interdict, and Huss left for his native village. He was to speak from a wider platform to all Christianity before laying down his life as a witness for truth. A general council was called to meet at Constance in southwestern Germany. The Emperor Sigismund wanted to have such a council, so one of the three rival popes, John the 23rd, called it. Pope John, whose character and policy would not look good under investigation, dared not oppose Sigismund's will. The main things to be accomplished were to heal the split in the church and to root out heresy. The two anti-popes were summoned to appear, as well as John Huss. The rival popes were represented by their delegates. Pope John came with many misgivings. He was afraid he would have to answer for his vices that had disgraced the papal crown, as well as for the crimes he had committed to secure it. Yet he made his entry into the city of Constance with great pomp, accompanied by high church officials and a procession of other attendants. Above his head was a golden canopy, held by 4 of the chief magistrates. The communion wafer for the Mass was carried before him, and the rich dress of the cardinals and nobles made an impressive display. Meanwhile, another traveler was approaching Constance. Huss said goodbye to his friends as if he would never see them again, feeling that his journey was leading him to the stake. He had obtained a safe conduct from the King of Bohemia and one also from Emperor Sigismund. But he made all his arrangements with the fact in mind that he would probably die. Safe conduct from the king. In a letter to his friends he said, "My brethren, I am departing with a safe conduct from the king to meet my many mortal enemies. Jesus Christ suffered for his well-beloved, and therefore should we be astonished that he has left us his example? Therefore, beloved, if my death will contribute to his glory, pray that it may come quickly, and that he may enable me to bear all my calamities faithfully. Let us pray to God, that I may not suppress one speck of the truth of the gospel, in order to have, my brethren, an excellent example to follow." In another letter, Huss spoke with humility of his own errors, accusing himself of having felt pleasure in wearing rich clothing and of having wasted hours on trivial things. He then added, "May the glory of God and the salvation of souls occupy your mind, and not the possession of wealth and prosperity. Beware of adorning your house more than your soul, and above all, pay attention to the spiritual things. Be pious and humble with the poor, and don't spend your resources on feasting." At Constance, Huss was given full liberty. He received not only the emperor's safe conduct, but also a personal assurance of protection by the Pope. But in spite of these repeated declarations, in a short time the reformer was arrested on orders from the Pope and cardinals and thrown into a miserable dungeon. Later he was taken to a strong castle across the Rhine to be kept as a prisoner. Soon after, the Pope himself was committed to the same prison. He had been proven guilty of the lowest crimes, besides murdery, simony, and adultery, sins not fit to be named. He was finally deprived of the crown. The anti-popes also were deposed, and a new pontiff was chosen. Though the pope himself had been guilty of greater crimes than those with which Huss had charged the priests, yet the same council that removed the pontiff went on to crush the reformer. The imprisonment of Huss stirred up great resentment in Bohemia. The emperor, who did not want to violate a safe conduct, opposed the proceedings against Huss, but the reformer's enemies argued that faith should not be kept with heretics, nor persons suspected of heresy, even when they were given safe conducts from the emperor and kings. Weak from illness, the damp dungeon brought on a fever that nearly ended his life. Huss was fully brought before the council. Loaded with chains, he stood in the presence of the emperor, who had pledged to protect him. He firmly presented the truth and solemnly protested against the corruptions of the hierarchy. When the council required him to choose whether he would recant his doctrines or be put to death, he accepted the martyr's fate. The grace of God sustained him. During the weeks of suffering before his final sentence, heaven's peace filled his soul. "I write this letter," he said to a friend, "in my prison, and with my chained hand, expecting my sentence of death tomorrow. When, with the assurance of Jesus Christ, we meet again in the delicious peace of the future life, you will learn how merciful God has been toward me, how well He has supported me in my temptations and trials." Triumph foreseen. In his dungeon he could see that the true faith would triumph in the future. In his dreams he saw the Pope and bishops leaving no trace of the pictures of Christ that he had painted on the walls of the chapel at Prague. The vision distressed him, but on the next day he saw many painters occupied in restoring these pictures in greater number and in brighter colors. The painters, surrounded by an immense crowd, exclaimed, "Now let the popes and bishops come. They will never remove them again." The reformers said, "The image of Christ will never be erased." They wanted to destroy it, but it will be painted afresh in all hearts by much better preachers than myself.